Then, awesome. Let's see. And let me go ahead and well, guys, hello, hello, and welcome to the Best of Missouri Hands Workshop Professional Development Grant Winner presentation with Cindy Goldman Larimore. I'm Allison Norfleet Ringer, and helping out today will be Wanda Tyner. And a little housekeeping. In our workshop today, we would like everyone to please stay muted. If you have any questions or issues, please use the chat feature. You will find a chat button at the bottom of your taskbar of your screen. And I would definitely get out some, a pen, paper, so you can take some notes and things like that. Near the end of the workshop, we will open up the floor. So we'll unmute everybody for a little questions and answers, and so you can get to talk with Cindy. Our speaker for this online workshop and presentation for today is Best Missouri Hands, Cindy Golden Lamar. Cindy, would you like to introduce yourself and tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Sure. First, I will tell you this is my first ever Zoom presentation, and I very uncomfortable. So help me with that part of it. But other than that, I live in St. Louis. I'm in Chesterfield. Relatively newish to the whole art community. I've had a business for years where I had a personalized gift business with my mom. And that progressed over the course of 20 years. And then I moved into the world of abstract art, and specifically into this world of reverse painting on plexiglass and glass. So it's a pretty unique process. I take a piece of plexiglass, I paint on the back of it, flip it over, and I've got this just bold design on it. Once I started with that, I was hooked and couldn't stop, and have just kind of moved along, selling at different shows and online and at Soulard Art Gallery. So that's a super brief background of me.
Thank you, Cindy. And don't be afraid. We're all very friendly here.
Oh my God.
We just want to hear from you.
Okay. Well, I will just tell you if I start rambling, just say, hey, stop a minute. So put me back on focus. I've got notes upon notes, but I'm ready to dive in if you guys are ready. Because of you all, I was able to take this class through ArtsyShark, and it's called Marketing Strategy for Artists. And I don't have any of you, I guess, raise of hands if you've taken any classes through them. I was really impressed with this class, and I would highly recommend it to anyone. I mean, it was super organized, outline. You could go course by course. They have self-evaluations in it. And then at the very end, which this is what I'm so excited to share with you guys, I bet I copied off 10 pages of resources. So links to different how to do this, how to do that, things that we've always wondered about that I don't know how, and I haven't dived into this how-to thing yet, but again, they just provided so much information. So feel free to reach out to me afterwards. Like if you've always wanted to know how to do a reel on Instagram, I don't know how to do that, but now I've got some resources I can pass on. So I'm happy to do that. So I will tell you this, like I said, I learned so much in this, and typically I'm that person that I'll go to presentations or I'll read what somebody else is doing on Facebook. I'm like, oh my God, I got to do that. I got to jump in. I have to do what they're doing, and I have to do everything. And then I either end up not doing it or I don't do it very well. So my goal when I got the grant for this class was to go really, really slow and really kind of digest each part of it. So that it took me, I really just finished the course a couple of weeks ago at the most. And if I could just take away maybe 4 of the most important things, and I will backtrack and tell you that back in the late 80s, early 90s, I actually taught high school marketing. And I swear marketing is a completely different thing than it was back then. Now, you all know it's just completely different. Back then, we used to concentrate, or I used to teach the kids about the 4 P's of marketing, which are price, product, place, and promotion. After taking this class, I will tell you that the things that I will concentrate on and that I'm going to try to get across today are the 4 C's, which I've labeled concentrate, cohesiveness, customers, and consistency. So that's really what they kind of based everything on. And that's, again, what I want to touch on. I will tell you that the very, very first thing that stuck out at me was that marketing art and selling art, or making art and selling art, are two different things. Like, there is no doubt we've all got this incredible art that we are doing. Everybody's got something that is unique to them. But if you don't figure out who is going to buy your art and what is making them buy your art and what is motivating them to buy it, and maybe where they are, it doesn't matter how great your art is. So you've got to figure out who those people are and what's motivating them. So that is the very first part about what I thought I'd cover, which is it's all about the customer. And I've had this drilled into my head that you have to figure out who your customer is. And I'm like, great, but how do you figure out who your customer is? I mean, I think of my artwork and I think, all right, well, my customer is somebody who likes art, but you got to really dive further than that. And some of the things that they talked about in this course about how to figure out who your customer is, and there was a whole self-evaluation we did on it, but it was pretty much almost like making up the story about this person. So figure out, like, if I think that Wanda is somebody who would like my art, I really try and do some research on who I think Wanda is, maybe what stage of life she's in, where she lives, what are some things she likes to do, she doesn't like to do, maybe what's her income, what's her education, and kind of create this whole story about who my ideal customer is. Once I've got this story, and this takes time to do, but once I have this story about Wanda and who she is, then I kind of do what I call maybe some Facebook or Instagram stalking, and really look at her and people like her and see, all right, what are some things that they like on Instagram? Who do they follow on Instagram or Facebook? And then maybe, all right, maybe somebody like a Wanda, and sorry, I just keep using your name because that's the first name that's popping up. Maybe she shops at Chico's. So then I go on Chico's page and I see some people that maybe have some similar things that Wanda likes. And it's all about just diving in and really getting to know who that customer is. Once you figure that out, you kind of gear everything towards who that person is. So in other words, if I know that my ideal customer is somebody that is at the stage of life where their kids are out of the house, they're empty nesters, they have extra income to spend, then that's what I gear my product towards. That's what I gear my marketing towards. That's what I gear maybe where I even put my artwork. So I thought that was kind of an important thing to really let sink in and really stop just for a minute and figure out who the heck it is that you're trying to sell to.
How did you get started on that, Cindy? How did you even narrow it down to, did you like pick a customer who had already bought something from you?
I did. That's because I thought that when I was very first, I did another course where they talked to us about that. I'm like, all right, what am I, like creative writing, just making up the story? So for me, I had to really think about who is somebody who's bought, maybe one of my things or two of my things. And I compared these two customers to see what their similarities were. And it's not always the case where everybody is the same, but a lot of times there is some similarity you can pull out, and then you almost use your creative mind and maybe embellish a little bit about who they are or who you want them to be and maybe where they live. So yeah, I did, Wanda. I used some information on what I had about who I knew as a starting place. And then, and this is something I'm happy to share with anybody, in some of the self-evaluations that they gave us, it gave us like a whole customer profile sheet for you to put in there. And I don't know, I mean, like some of it was, where did they go to school? How much money do you think they make? What do they like to do? What kind of ice cream do they like? All sorts of bizarro things that you don't necessarily think of. But the more you knew about that customer, it's almost like they became a friend of yours. And then you could gear what you were doing towards them. So if that makes sense. So once you kind of have in your mind the idea that you are not trying to sell to everyone, which again, I think is so key, because we end up making this art and you want to sell it to everyone because you just want to sell everything. But we cannot all possibly sell to everyone. You just have to figure out and key in on who that person is. Let's see what else I have about a customer before we jump in. Figuring out what motivates your customer was a big thing for me too. Because once you figure out who it is, figuring out maybe why they buy or what, maybe why they're going to buy in that moment. Because as we've all learned, just because you put an ad out there or just because you post your item on Facebook doesn't mean you're going to instantly get a sale. Or even if you're at an art show, somebody can walk by your booth 5 times, circling around, and then they come back and they're ready to buy it. Or maybe they see your post, you know, day after day, and in a couple months they come back to you and say, hey, I've really been looking at your artwork and I'm ready to make a purchase. And sometimes when that happens to me, I'm like, well, wait, I put that same post out there 5 times. What in the world has made them buy it now? So I think recognizing that there are different things that motivate a customer. And some of the things that this class talked about, which again, if you just think about it, maybe even just pull one of these things out for you. Scarcity is one of the things that is a motivating factor. So in other words, by that, it meant like if you have a limited edition print, or you have a one-of-a-kind or a unique piece of art, publish that. Let them know that this is a limited edition. You don't have 5 of these to go around. And sometimes just that little motivation behind somebody will make them jump in and make the purchase. Another motivation or trigger is called an authority trigger. So the more you can let people know what you're doing and why you have some credibility in what you're doing, let that be known. So if you were interviewed on the local news because you were in an art show, put that on your website or put that on Facebook, like as seen in Fox 2 News. It just lends a little bit of credibility to what it is that you are doing. And it also, if you can provide testimonials from people who have bought your artwork before, people really like to see that. And the more I have read about this, it just makes so much sense. And if you think about maybe why you buy something, sometimes it's because somebody else has bought it. So if you can put those testimonials on your website or even on Facebook, that's another thing to do. Social triggers or social motivation. And tell me this isn't how it is at art shows. You sell one print to one person and then all of a sudden somebody else comes in and say, hey, I just saw that somebody else had. Can I see that? So sometimes people are motivated because they see other people buying it or as seen, you know, at this art show. It kind of makes them, triggers them to buy. If you're lucky enough to have any kind of influencers like celebrities or even local celebrities that have purchased your product before, publicize that. Sometimes people are motivated by what they see others doing. I thought this was interesting, a persuasion trigger or persuasion motivation. If you can get involved with a charity that you really truly believe in, not just putting your name out there with somebody because you think it's a way to sell a product, but if you can be authentic and sponsor something or donate something to a cause that is near and dear to your heart, that also gives some credibility to what it is you're selling and might motivate somebody to buy something. And the last thing I thought was interesting about motivation was discounting your artwork. And there's 2 trains of thoughts on this. Some people think you should offer discounts, you know, 20% off today, or at the show, it's going to be 20% off if you buy something. So this article really talked about the whole value added process. Instead of just saying, hey, my artwork is 10% off, sometimes that in people's mind lowers the value of the product if you're offering a discount. So instead of doing that, perhaps add some value to it. Like if you buy it today, I'll offer you free shipping, or buy today and you'll get a set of free note cards. So giving something in addition to what they're getting instead of just making it at a discounted price. And the last thing on motivating and knowing your customers, there's a really big difference between what they call marketing to businesses and marketing to consumers, or B2B or B2C marketing. And if you think about it, if you're marketing your product to a gallery versus marketing it to me as a person, you're going to use some different techniques. So I thought that was kind of an interesting aspect as well. That's what I've got on customers. Another really, I thought, are any questions on that? Move on. Another interesting, I'm sorry, I have like so many notes here. I gotta get myself
Cindy,
organized.
there is a
Hey,
question.
actually, I might have a slight question on one of those areas when you were saying B2B and B2C. So do they, in the format of what you were studying, did they also explain how you can approach the galleries? Is there a little bit of area, because that is to a business, or like if you're thinking, I'm doing, a lot of people are now, rather than doing as many art fairs, because we have to consider that COVID has, changed a lot of how we're approaching things. If we are trying to approach the galleries, do they go into an area that way to, how to approach versus just the one-to-one customer?
They did. Really, once you get into what marketing you want to do, like one of the things that I took away from marketing to galleries was, instead of taking the approach, I'm going to hit every gallery that's in St. Louis that I think would be interested in my artwork, or every gallery that I am interested in, don't try to hit all of them. Pick out a couple of them, do some research on those galleries the same way as you do research on customers. Go visit them. Go see, are you even a good fit for that gallery? Because not every gallery is for all of us, which is, hard to recognize or admit, I think. So I think, again, it was all about fine tuning what you're doing instead of trying to hit every single gallery that's out there. So let's say you go and you do some research around St. Louis because you're in the area, picking out a few that you think you would be a good fit to, and then maybe sending them, if you have a sample, or sending them your marketing package in the mail, and then following up with them. And I'll look and see if there's more I can give you just on that, and I will definitely forward that on to you. But it really was more about just doing the research and not trying to feel like you had to hit every single gallery there was.
Thank you.
All right. So my next part was going to be about, you figured out who your customer is. So then it's all about your presentation of what you have. And this is where the whole importance of your visual presentation and your storytelling goes. And this was the one that I bet I spent the longest time on. Let me get my notes on it so I make sure I get this to you correctly. It's all about, so on your website, those of you that have a website, or on even Facebook, or even if you're applying, I know this is me applying to Best of Missouri Hands, it's all about the photography. It's all about your photographing what you got. So one of the things it suggested, and I really do want to find my exact page, I have this because it really lists it out. When you're creating your portfolio, is to have 3 different types, we'll call it, of photographs. And for each cat, so if you look, like I went on my website and I wrote a list, I have this full spreadsheet I made of every single piece of artwork that was on my website at the time. For each piece of artwork, I went through and I made sure I had one close-up picture of it. So just the close-up of the artwork, as close in cropped as you can get. And then what they call an in situ photo or in situation photo. So you've got this close-up of your picture, but then let's show it up on a wall somewhere. Or if you're a fiber artist or jewelry, put it on somebody and model. Don't just have it laying on a table displayed beautifully, but show it in the situation that somebody would actually use it. And there's all sorts of resources for this that I'm happy to pass on. All the apps that are out there where you can, insert your artwork into somebody else's beautiful home or whatever. And then 2 to 3 shots of detail of that artwork. So if I've got a big, 30 by 30 painting, maybe I'll zoom in on a couple really neat areas. So what I ended up doing was I, wrote down, like I said, each of my pieces of artwork. And then I went in and I made sure I had all of those photos for each individual artwork. And I updated my website to reflect that. And so now every time I create a piece of art, that's just key in my head that I need to make sure I have all those different types of photos. Does that make sense? All right, because that one really spoke to me, because there's many times I'll just flop a photo out there and I know I'm just not good with that.
Cindy, I hate to interrupt, but I do
Oh,
have
please
one
do.
question. On the first of the three types of images, the one that was the close-up, is that a tight-in photo of the entire work?
Mhm.
It's just like no outside, just cropped in tight, but the entire work,
Yes.
right? Okay. And then further down, the third one is like the details, like go and
Details.
zoom in on details of the, okay,
Yeah.
good, perfect,
Yeah.
thank you.
And then that in situation one I think is really key because, and whether that even is, I tried to stage an area in my house or at the gallery, and I don't know if it's better to do that or to go to one of these apps where you can put your artwork up on the wall. Does anybody use any of those apps? So something to think about. So the other part.
I've used, Canva before for putting things on the wall. And I just use the free version, which has limited rooms. If you do small art, there's only a small subset of rooms that really work, but it's free. And it is kind of fun to do sometimes. I have just hung them in my house and taken pictures because that's, easier. But I get more comments when I do that. But like you, I don't do it very often.
I know. And Wanda, like mine and yours, I have the ones that hang on the wall, but then the ones like behind you that are on a shelf, those are the ones I find hard to show in a situation because there's not apps, I don't think, to put our small artwork.
I am curious about something too. If everybody's already pretty much have customers and everything, if you already have a customer who collects some of your things, would it be okay to ask them, hey, can you send me a shot in your home? It's part of, like you said, part of your testimony, but if they do have the shot of it in their home, that kind of also gives it like in the environment too. So that might be take care of two things at once,
I just read an article today about it, and we also spoke about it in this class. Hands down, the most comments I get on a post, or the most people who get back to me, is after somebody has posted my artwork in their home. And this article that I think Kim posted today was about, should you let people know you have a sale? And this author said, absolutely, let people know you have a sale and try to get your customer to send a picture of it in their home. Or even if they've come into the gallery or they've come into your booth, get a picture of them holding your artwork. It just makes it more personable and lets people see it's not just you boasting like, oh yeah, I had a sale today. It's actually showing it in the real scenario.
And customers like to do that too, because at least for my jewelry, I've been tagged and I'm like, what am I tagged for? And I don't understand. And it will be a customer from like 2 or 3 years ago who put the necklace on and she was wearing it out to a party and she tagged me, or they say, oh, look what I just got in the mail. And then they actually share the picture.
Cool.
And that's just like, oh, I'm excited that they're excited, but then I'm thinking, wow, that's going to really be.
And the thing is, because then it goes out to all of their people who are not necessarily connected to you, and you may end up gaining new followers from that. So absolutely do that. All right, this was another part of the whole visual presentation, or the whole, not visual, but your presentation, that I know there's been other workshops about this. I won't go on too much about it, and it's something I am working on, so I don't really have a whole bunch. But just writing your story, not just the really stiff blurb we have to put about ourselves, but who you are, what you do, why you do, figuring it out. And what their kind of practice was with all of this was write out a long version of who you are, what you do. And I want to grab my little notes on my self-evaluation for this because it had some good things. Telling your story. And that said, the very first thing you should do is just write out a long version, talking about your background, your inspiration, how your current body of work evolved. And then once you have that, then make a little shorter version of it. And then once you have the shorter version, take some highlights so that if I ran into you on the street today, or even at the beginning of this presentation, I could just say a sentence or two. Oopsies, most people don't want to hear the long whole story. just in a sentence or two. And I can't remember what workshop it was that Best in Missouri Hands put on, I don't know, a couple months ago, that I remember somebody talking to us about that. But I have found myself really needing that a lot. And then once you have that story, even if you can condense it down and one of your marketing pieces is a sign that you have up in your gallery space or you have at your art show that just says it in a sentence so that people are walking by your booth. Like I have now out in my space at Soulard, it says Art by C. Larry, painting in reverse. And my hope is that somebody looks at that and they're like, what the hell is painting in reverse? And they stop and either they look or they ask me. So by taking that whole big story, I honed it down into something very narrow and then built some marketing around that. So don't discount figuring out who you are and what you do, because that all ties into your marketing. Which also ties into creating your brand. You can't just have artwork that you're making, you have to have a brand. And that gets into the whole cohesiveness of everything. You've got your name, maybe you have a logo, you have colors that kind of you identify with your brand. Maybe you have different fonts that you use, but try to be cohesive across the board. So whether that is on your website or social media, business cards, your signage, everything just have a cohesive, uniform look. And even though I myself, like I have a brand, there are times I love playing around with different fonts and I have to kind of like, okay, no, Cindy, stop it. You've got to stick to what you do. So not always easy. Last thing probably on this part is about, and this is the easiest thing to work on, but I think a hard thing to do, making a list of features and benefits. Everything that you do has features, and the features are just factual. Like if I had this clipboard and I said a feature of this board that I'm trying to sell this is that it's made of wood. All right, what's the benefit of that? And once you figure out what the benefit is, that is what you're trying to sell to people. That's what you're marketing. It's not so much that I'm selling to you this 30 by 30 painting, or I'm selling you this painting that's on plexiglass. What is the benefit of that? So it was really, really helpful to actually write out a list. It sounds stupid, but write a list of your features. And then for each feature, what's the benefit? And then gear your marketing towards those benefits, not necessarily just the features. So that's the whole kind of beginning part of this course, which again, the beginning part was a huge thing. And then we dove into different marketing methods. And I'm telling you, there could be a class on each one, like everything from direct mail to press coverage. What I thought I would do is just pick out just a couple little tidbits I learned just to pass on each part. And I think this would be a great part if anybody's got things to share, like something that they've done, throw them out there. And I will say that there's all the old standard marketing that has been around forever. And then now, of course, there's all this other stuff, Facebook and Instagram, there's TikTok. And even since this class started, it's all changed. Like Instagram now, Instagram originally started to be a place you could post photos. Instagram now is trying to get all towards video, which is going to totally change it up. And for those, Allison, this is where we'll need your husband even more, is to teach these kind of things. So it's always evolving and you got to just be up with it. One of the things that stuck in my head was layering your marketing. So incorporating the new with the old. So if you're one of those people that you have a brochure and it's this beautiful brochure about your artwork, maybe adapt something new into that. Put a QR code on there, which I have no experience with QR codes, but I have the resources now that I can look it up, which again, happy to pass on to you. So layering some of the new with the old so that you can just build up different audiences. All right, so specific ones. Direct mail was something we talked about. And direct mail could be as simple as...
I think there was a question.
Sorry.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to share that the QR code part, my car is very branded to my business. So I have my whole back window is a vinyl that you can see through from the inside. My daughter had a Cricut and she made me a QR code that sends people directly to my Facebook page. And I put it on my car right below that image. And I actually have had somebody scan it from the car behind me and call me. And I was like, dang, that worked. That's awesome. So that was pretty cool. I just wanted to share that, so the same marketing materials, but adding that QR code got me a phone call out of it. So it was pretty cool. So thank you.
That is exactly what they're talking about. And exactly what I feel like. I mean, you got a new customer out of that, or at least some new interest, and maybe they didn't purchase right then, but that doesn't mean that they won't. So yay, that's cool. That's very cool. All right, so direct mail thing I took away from it, and hopefully we all do this, every time you have a sale, and I'm not saying, maybe every time you have a substantial sale, let's say, or something where you actually get somebody's name and phone number and address, send a handwritten thank you note, whether that's in with the artwork that you're shipping out to somebody, or as a thank you later on. I have a commission piece I'm going to drop off this week. Next week, I'll make sure and follow up with the thank you note. And in that thank you note, don't hesitate to put in there how, our small business is built a lot on referrals. Please feel free to pass my name on to anyone that might be interested. Don't be afraid to write that, and it's a really important thing to do. This kind of gets back to what Wanda, or Allison, what you had asked about, like going to galleries or knowing how to market to galleries. Set up a budget and then figure out, maybe I won't hit everybody in this zip code, or maybe I won't hit everybody that came to the last art show, but maybe just decide I'm only going to send to 20 customers. And then really put all your efforts into those 20 customers. And that's just a number I'll throw out there, but you don't necessarily have to try to hit everybody all the time. A lot depends on what your budget is. Don't be afraid when you're looking to try to build your email list, which I know is something I'm trying to do. I don't have a very big email list. Have a guest book at your gallery space, have a guest book in your booth. Don't be afraid to ask friends, relatives, if they can pass on another email to you. You don't want to be one of these direct mail companies, or what do they call them now? The direct sale companies, where you are bombarded by friends like, oh, Cindy, do you want to try my new diet pill? And then will you pass that on to somebody else? You don't, like, that is nasty, but don't be afraid to ask people, or put a note up on your Facebook page. My business is built on referrals. That was my direct mail hint. Print ideas or print marketing, depending on what it is you're selling. We've all got business cards. Maybe you have note cards. Any kind of signage you have in your booth, just be consistent and cohesive with what your whole brand is. Adding that little personal touch. Don't just have the business cards out in your booth, but personally hand it to somebody. Make that personal connection, I think, is key, because it's also, kids come around and just grab the business cards that we've worked hard on and they go in the trash or whatever. Talked a lot about press coverage, which I don't feel like I'm an authority at all to talk about. And it could be a whole class just on reaching out to the press, how to get press releases written about you, how to write your own press releases. And that would have to be for another time, because there's so much on there. Networking is part of marketing. We all know this because we're part of this group, but this is huge, to just have these resources here and network with each other, and not to be afraid to, if I know somebody who really is looking for some incredible jewelry, well, now I know somebody I can refer them to. I have Allison. I don't have them on today, Allison, but I have some of Allison's earrings. So don't be afraid to recommend or refer people that you met in other groups, and then hopefully they'll reciprocate to you too. Website. Hopefully everybody's got a website or building one or some degree of it. This course went way deep into this, and there's so many resources that, again, happy to pass on if somebody is looking to build a website. Talked a lot about making it cohesive with all your other marketing materials. But the three things that stuck out to me that I'm working on kind of revamping with my website, because I don't have the money to pay somebody to do it. So I've done it all through Square. But really looking at my homepage, And the homepage, here's some of the things that they really said should be on there. Definitely your business name, goes without saying. If you have a logo or a tagline, all of that should be on that homepage. Make it really clear and don't make people dig around to figure out, okay, wait a minute, what is the name of this business or how do I contact them? On that page, make sure it's all right up front and right there for them to see. Have some images of your artwork on there, or if you're featuring something, make sure it's on that homepage. Make sure your social media links are on the homepage. And don't just put find me on Facebook, have the actual link on there. Keep everything current. And I know it's hard to not do this, but we got to update our images on there every so often, because otherwise people are going to think that maybe you're not in business anymore. And if you have the type of website that would allow you to do this, make sure you have a link on there to sign up for your email list. So you just want to make the navigation really easy. Your about page, your about the artist page, don't just make it your resume or a list of all the awards or a list of shows. This is where your artist story comes in. Don't make it so long that nobody is going to get past it. You just want to make it compelling. Just tell your story. And it gets back to you writing that story and making your long and your short version. Maybe have short, sweet little bites on there. So people, hopefully they're interested and they just keep reading about it. You could even make a video to go on your about page. That makes it a little bit more personable. If you're somebody who writes a blog or you have other resources, link it to that on there. Like I was lucky enough to have a piece in the Post-Dispatch recently. So I made sure I linked that once I learned how to do that, link that to my website. So anything that you can do to build your credibility and show that you're really out there is a good thing to do. They also stress the importance of having a frequently asked question page, but they showed us some examples, and instead of calling it that, have a page that says why you should buy my artwork, and then you're kind of answering different things about your artwork. So that was kind of interesting. They talked about SEO, which is oh my gosh, why did it just go out of my head? SEO, what does that stand for? Search engine optimization. Which again, I think we could have a whole workshop on that, and I wish somebody could come in and really teach us about that, but it's all about the keywords that are throughout your website and updating those all the time. And that's what keeps us front and center on Google searches. Talked about blogging, which I don't personally do. I don't know if I have anything to say, but the importance of doing that, again, is just to get subscribers, and another thing to link to your page. The more you can link to your website, the more chances you have of rising up on the Google's search engines. Anything on websites? That's kind of what I got on that. All right, and then just a few last things are on social media. Facebook page, you should have a business Facebook page, which I know we've all talked about before. But the importance of joining other Facebook groups to help network and then to build traffic back to your site or back to your page. And I'm not as good as doing that as I used to be, but you know, obviously Best of Missouri Hands is one of them. There's so many different art groups out there. And sometimes I feel like I'm just bombarded by people's artwork. And I really want to know more about not the process, but about all the businessy ends of things. So you have to kind of, I think, hunt and peck for the ones that are right for you. Make sure on your Facebook page, and there's a way to do it, where you have a little sign up button on the top of your Facebook page, again, to direct them to your website and to get email followers. Instagram is changing even since I just finished this class. We talked about that, where they're trying to get more towards videos, which Allison, hopefully James is going to be doing some more videos on that. But this is something I learned, and I think I knew this, but I didn't really, I guess. On Facebook, you can put a link to your website. On Instagram, you're only allowed to have one link in your profile. And that's why people use what they call Linktree, which you could put up in your profile. And Linktree is exactly that. It links all of your things together in one spot. So on your Instagram profile, I guess is what they call it, your about little section, you can put a link to your Linktree. Somebody clicks on that and that will take them to your Instagram, to your website, to your Facebook, to all of the things that are you. On Instagram, search out people or groups that have similar interests to you. And sometimes that will lead you down a whole rabbit hole and you can learn some different hashtags they've used. You can learn, try to just gain some followers by some of the work that they've already done. Hashtags, that's a whole, whole thing in and of itself as well. But I thought this was a little bit interesting. When you're writing out your hashtags, and I'm going to put my glasses on for this one because this was a good one. Try to have some hashtags that describe what you do. So if you're a fiber artist, maybe hashtag fiber art. Then maybe have some that are unique to your own niche. So maybe, you know, I'm an artist on Instagram, but I have hearts. So maybe I have some heart hashtags. I see hearts. I love hearts. Anything to do with hearts. That might be your niche. And then maybe some hashtags that list the benefits. Hashtag cotton, hashtag acrylic paint, hashtag handmade. So you get a variety of those 3 different types of hashtags and pull them all together into your post. And don't use the same hashtags day after day in your post. You're supposed to really switch those up. Different schools of thought on if you should put that as a caption underneath your photo or in a separate comment that you do. I don't know what the right answer is on that. Different people tell you different things. If your website allows you to do this, like I have the basic one on Square or Square Up, one of the two. You can link your Instagram feed onto your website, which is another way to populate the pictures on there. Talked a little bit about LinkedIn, and that's more for networking resources. I haven't really gone a whole bunch into that, but I think it's another avenue to try. And again, I'm trying to not want to have to do everything, but just slowly focusing. Pinterest is another avenue, which again, I haven't really gotten much into. I would like to. It's a way to connect. They called it like a connector site. It brings internet traffic into your website through things that you post on Pinterest. So I don't know how many people do it on there, but they did suggest if you're on Pinterest, pin things slowly. Don't put like 10 pins on there a day and then don't come back to it for another month. Maybe pin 1 a day and it just kind of builds up, slowly builds up the traffic there. Always, if you do pin anything on Pinterest, put your website, include that in there. And supposedly, if you do pin something and you put a price on it, it will automatically populate it into their gift section, which I thought was kind of an interesting thing to know. Wow, I feel like I've just rambled and rambled. Once you've done all of this, the other key that they had us do was creating a marketing calendar. So whether it be if you're one of these people that wants to do it by the week, by the month, and that's what they kind of suggest is doing it by the month. It takes time to sit and really do this, but the more you get yourself in the habit of doing it, the quicker and the easier it will go. So in other words, if I plan for the month of, what month are we in? July? Lost track. If I want to plan for the month of August, and really plot it out. Like on Mondays, I know I'm going to have Instagram posts that are my motivation Mondays. And maybe every Wednesday, I'm going to post about a new product I have. And every Friday, I'm going to post about an event I have coming up. Building up that consistency, getting yourself in the habit of doing it, and actually doing it, which I have gotten myself in. Like January, I really sat down and I planned out the whole month. And it was so cool to know I had it done. And it was just this breath of fresh air to know. February, I kind of did it. And then March, I didn't. So for me, find myself, I do much better if I do plan it out. But it's easier said than done. See what else I got here. There's one other thing I wanted to make sure I said, and I got to find my little quote here that I loved how they said it. Of course, I cannot right now. Oh, I know. The one last thing was about email marketing. We talked about creating your email list and generating more and more email addresses. And if you think about it, that your posts on social media are kind of like water cooler talk. You're not getting into any detail. But when you send out those emails to your customers or your hope to be customers, you're really getting into detail and you're telling the whole story. And I kind of liked that analogy. Made me think about it, because I don't always know, like, what the heck am I going to say to people if I send an email? So that was a way to look at it, just really get more in detail with some things. So that is the course in a nutshell. And again, I have notes upon notes that I took that I'm so happy to share with anybody, and all of their resources. If you want to just, send me a message and say, can you tell me, was there anything about videos? And I'll send you the links they sent me. Highly recommend the class if anybody wants to. And I'm assuming their other ones are just as good as this one. So thank you to Best of Missouri Hands for the opportunity to take the class too. And I hope you learned something.
I was just curious, would anybody have any questions? We can kind of open, like we said, open the floor if you got anything that you either want to comment on or possibly, have a little question that might have been like as she was going through. And it was awesome, Cindy. I learned so much just within this. This is lots of notes. So does anybody have any questions or anything?
I just want to thank you for the time you took to share this with us today. I've been thinking about taking courses with ArtsyShark, but right now I'm kind of doing a lot of home renovations, so I'm kind of putting everything on hold for a bit. But when I get back to it, I'm going to need to. I took good notes today, but I might be tapping you for some of that information.
Please do. And one of the things that was so good about this one is that I could walk away from it for even a week at a time and come back to it. It was that organized.
Oh, good.
Wow.
And then it did really allow you, like I said, even with the photography section, I mean, I took weeks working on that. And I just said, all right, I'll come back to the class when I get that chunk done, instead of taking the whole class and then trying to do it all.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Reminder to everyone, there are a couple of videos that Carolyn did over a year ago when we canceled our conference.
ArtSmart.
She did a couple of courses that are out on her YouTube channel. Cindy, I think you went to a lot more detail to help us to understand some of it. And Lorraine, I think you have a question. You need to unmute.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I'm sorry I tuned in quite late, very late. First of all, Cindy, congratulations.
Thank you.
And my question is, and because I tuned in late, maybe you already covered this, and if so, just forget it. I'll email you. But what do you think has been have you had a return on your investment in the course, or has BOMH had a return on their investment in the course for you? Have you seen your sales increase since you started using the stuff that you learned in the course?
Well, so I didn't invest. Obviously, Best of Missouri Hands did. I hope they see a return. Even if all of us just get something from it, to me, that's a return. Me personally, when I started on the class was in January, and in February is when I was accepted as a resident artist at a local gallery at Soulard. And it has been so helpful to me in that regard. I can't tell you like a dollar figure. I don't know if my sales have increased, but it helped me figure out, all right, I can't just put a piece of artwork up on the wall. I need to have the little, price tags. Those price tags should correlate with my business cards, should correlate with the sign I have outside of my studio space there. It helped me figure out how to do the post I want to do, not only for me, but now I'm doing it for Soulard Art Gallery. So it gave me some confidence in what I was doing, and in recognizing that you could even have this wonderful gallery space and this beautiful, not even just me, but just the gallery, but you got to figure out your marketing. So it just gave me so much information that, again, using my personal business and right now we're at the gallery that I'm at. And then just giving me some confidence or some knowledge how to approach others. Like I do want to be out in other galleries and I do want to reach out to and partner with a charity. So now this gave me some information on how to do that, if that makes sense. I think it's just the how-tos behind it.
Thanks. Can I ask one more?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a feel for, and again, if you've already answered this or covered this, don't worry about it. Do you have a feel for the amount of time that you feel like you need to spend after taking the course? How much time you need to spend, say, a week or a day in just time away from the easel doing marketing, business stuff?
Gosh, I'm curious what others have to say about that. I know right now I'm in a real rut as far as creativity goes because I put so much into finishing this class, but also into working on the marketing aspect, whether it be for me or for the gallery. I do know that's where the whole scheduling aspect comes in, and that I know me personally, if I look at my week on a Sunday and I schedule out, and this sounds so stupid to do, but once I subscribe to this train of thought, I'll look at Monday or tomorrow is going to be my whole day where I just get to paint and I block that day out. Today, I literally blocked out, from whatever, 8 to 12 is Best of Missouri Hands. 12 to 4, I'm going to a class. From 4 to 5, I'll do marketing. So I really do schedule out my days, or I try to, because I know I am much more productive when I do that.
Yeah.
But if you spend the whole portion of your time just on creating or the whole portion of your time just on marketing, you got to find that balance somewhere. And I'm trying to find that balance.
Well, thank you. I watched the recording so I can see.
Okay, good.
And did anybody else have any other questions or anything like that? I was going to ask one question, which is interesting because I know that we're speaking at Best of Missouri Hands. How did you go about applying? Because I mean, sometimes I think that we have a lot of different options for people, different things going on. How was it with the applying process? How did that go for you?
For the grant?
For the grant itself, because maybe seeing that, that we do have this, every year, this, next time it'll be Maggie speaking or maybe Annie, so I'm just curious that side of it as well.
It's funny because I talked myself into it, out of it. I'm like, oh no, I won't, they're not going to want me to do this. And then I thought, what the hell? This is something I knew I could benefit from personally. And I feel like us as artists, there's so much information out there. And again, I knew that there's so many good artists out here, but we don't all know how to market. And so I just decided to go for it. I figured, what do I have to lose? And Best of Missouri Hands does not make it difficult to apply. It's not like it was a strenuous process or an in-depth. It was just really filling out about why I wanted to do it and what I thought I could gain from it. So I just decided for once not to be afraid to do it and try it.
We are thankful that you did.
Yes, thank you.
And that you shared what you learned with us. We really appreciate that.
Good, my pleasure.
Any other questions? Well, thank you, Cindy, for taking the time to prepare the presentation, to share what you learned, to give us all things to think about and to bring into our practice. And I really like your message, which is don't try to do it all, do a little bit at a time.
We're so guilty of that, aren't we?
Very good.
Well, thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you.
You too, thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.